The first thing Maren Holt felt that morning was fear tightening in her chest like a fist, even before the sun had fully climbed above the cracked windows of the diner. By noon, she would hear the words that froze her blood every single day, the ones that echoed in her head long after the shift ended, the ones that promised she was alone in this world. She had no idea that by the end of that same bright afternoon, strangers with roaring engines and leather vests would change the direction of her life forever. If you believe in second chances, quiet courage, and kindness arriving when it feels impossible, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment what kindness means to you, and subscribe to Only Kindness so these stories keep reaching hearts that need them. Maren was 26, thin from missed meals and long shifts, with soft brown hair always pulled back tight so it wouldn't fall into plates of food she served. The Blue Lantern Diner sat just off a busy highway, sunlit during the day and forgotten at night, its peeling paint and flickering sign matching how she felt inside. She worked the daytime shift because it paid a few dollars more and because daylight made her feel slightly safer. Every morning, sunlight spilled across the worn booths, the smell of coffee filled the air, and trucks rolled past outside like the world was moving forward without her. She smiled at customers because that was her job, but behind the smile lived a constant ache. The diner's owner, a man named Curtis Vale, controlled every inch of the place like it was his personal kingdom. He watched her closely, corrected her loudly, docked her pay for imagined mistakes, and leaned too close when no one else was around. He enjoyed reminding her that she had nowhere else to go. He knew she was late on rent. He knew her car barely ran. He knew she had no family nearby and no savings. He used that knowledge like a weapon. Every day, he found a way to humiliate her in front of customers or corner her near the storage room, his voice low and cruel, promising consequences if she ever tried to leave. Maren endured it because survival demanded it. Each morning, as sunlight streamed through the windows, she told herself she only had to make it through one more shift. That Tuesday was especially bright. The sky was white and blue, the kind of day that made everything else feel painfully small. Lunch hour came early, filling the diner with road workers, delivery drivers, and families passing through. Maren moved quickly, balancing trays, refilling coffee, her heart pounding whenever Curtis's shadow crossed her path. Then, just after noon, the sound arrived first. A low, rolling thunder that vibrated through the floor before anyone saw its source. Engines. Not one or two, but many. Heads turned toward the windows as sunlight glinted off chrome and black paint. A long line of motorcycles pulled into the parking lot, their presence commanding attention without a single word. Leather vests, patches, heavy boots, and calm, deliberate movements followed as the riders dismounted. Maren felt her stomach drop. She had seen groups like this on the road before, but never this many, never so close. The patch on their backs was unmistakable. Hell's Angels. Her hands trembled as she wiped them on her apron, fear mixing with confusion. Curtis noticed them too, his expression sharpening with something that looked like opportunity. The bikers entered the diner one by one, sunlight outlining their figures as the doors swung open and shut. They filled two booths in a counter row, ordering coffee, burgers, and pie like any other customers. Their voices were low, controlled, and oddly respectful. No shouting, no chaos. Just presence. Maren served them with careful politeness, her pulse racing. She expected rude comments or intimidation, but instead she noticed small things. One man slid his chair back to give her room. Another thanked her when she refilled his cup. Their eyes were sharp, observant, missing nothing. Curtis watched from behind the counter, his smile thin and forced. He waited until Maren passed him carrying plates, then leaned in, his voice full of venom, reminding her she was already behind and threatening to cut her hours. The words hit her harder than usual because they came with a promise of something worse later. She felt her vision blur but kept moving. One of the bikers noticed. His name was Elias Crow, though Maren didn't know that yet. He was in his early 40s, tall, broad-shouldered, his gray-streaked beard framing a face that looked carved from stone. His eyes followed Curtis, then returned to Maren with quiet concern. The afternoon stretched on. Sunlight shifted across the diner floor. Customers came and went. Curtis grew bolder, his cruelty fed by the audience and his belief that fear equaled control. Near the counter, he cornered Maren again, his body blocking her path, his voice carrying just enough for nearby tables to hear. He reminded her of everything she would lose if she stepped out of line. He laughed when her hands shook. Something in the room changed. The air felt heavier, like the moment before a storm breaks. Chairs scraped softly as several bikers stood, not aggressively, but with intention. Elias moved first, walking toward the counter with steady steps. Curtis turned, irritation flashing across his face as he realized the attention was no longer on him. Elias placed a few bills on the counter, enough to cover the meal and more. His voice, calm and level, carried through the diner without needing to rise. He spoke about respect, about work, about how no one deserved to be treated like prey, especially not in the light of day. Curtis scoffed, puffing himself up, trying to reclaim authority. He boasted about ownership, about rules, about consequences. He looked around for support and found none. Customers stared into their plates. The bikers stood like a wall, silent but unyielding. Elias leaned slightly forward, his gaze unwavering. He made it clear that everyone in that room had seen what was happening, and that daylight had a way of exposing truth. He made it clear that threats spoken out loud did not disappear just because someone pretended they were jokes. He made it clear that eyes were watching now, and that they would remember. Curtis faltered, his face flushed, anger mixing with fear as he realized the balance of power had shifted. He muttered something about minding their own business, but his voice lacked conviction. Elias straightened, nodded once, and returned to his seat. The message had been delivered without a single threat. For the rest of the shift, Curtis kept his distance. He avoided Marin entirely, his earlier confidence replaced by tight silence. Marin moved through the diner like she was underwater, shock numbing her senses. No one had ever stood up for her before. Not openly, not like that. When the bikers finished their meals, they left generous tips folded neatly beneath coffee cups. As Elias passed Marin on the way out, he paused just long enough to meet her eyes. He didn't smile, didn't say anything, but the look he gave her held something powerful. Assurance, recognition, the understanding that she mattered. The engines roared back to life outside, sunlight flashing off metal as the riders pulled away, leaving the parking lot strangely quiet. The diner returned to normal sounds, but Marin felt like she was standing in a different world. That evening, Curtis called her into the office. Sunlight still filtered through the blinds, casting sharp lines across his desk. His voice was strained, careful. He spoke about misunderstandings, about professionalism, about how they should keep things civil. For the first time, he sounded uncertain. Marin listened, her heart pounding, but something inside her had changed. Fear no longer ruled every thought. Over the next few days, word spread. Customers who had witnessed the scene spoke up more. Curtis's behavior softened, not from kindness but from caution. Marin noticed a difference in herself too. She stood straighter. She spoke clearer. She started looking for other jobs in the mornings, filling out applications during breaks, believing for the first time that escape was possible. A week later, under the same bright daytime sky, Marin handed in her notice. Curtis didn't argue. He barely looked at her. She walked out of the Blue Lantern diner with sunlight on her face and a future that no longer felt sealed shut. Months passed. Marin found work at a family-owned cafe across town, a place filled with laughter and fair treatment. She saved enough to move into a small apartment with windows that let the sun pour in every morning. Sometimes, when motorcycles rumbled past outside, her heart still jumped, but now it jumped with gratitude instead of fear. She never saw Elias or the others again, but she didn't need to. Their kindness had done its work. They hadn't rescued her with violence or promises. They had simply shown up, seen the truth, and refused to look away. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness can arrive from the most unexpected places, please like this video, share it, and let us know your thoughts so more people can feel this hope. Before this story ends, take a moment to comment one word that describes how it made you feel. Your words help this channel grow and help others feel less alone. On a bright afternoon that began like any other, Marin learned that daylight reveals more than cruelty. It reveals courage, connection, and the quiet power of people who choose to stand up when it matters most.